Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to call to order the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners Budget Workshop for May the 29th, 2014. For those of you in the audience, we don't have near as many here right yet. I guess some folks will show up later. That's okay. If you'll put your phone on vibrate or silent, we would appreciate it. And Rowan Cabarrus, come on up, because you guys are first on the list. I apologize. I should have already said that to you. And you'd have been set up for us, but no rush. So what we did, Tuesday we started our budget meetings, and so the first thing I'd like to ask is if you will introduce yourself and say who all's with you,
okay,
and then you're set to go.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is this one all right? Okay, I'm Carol Spalding, president of Rowan Cabarrus Community College, and we're delighted to be with you. On my right is Jonathan Chamberlain, who's the head of our facilities, and on my left is our chief financial officer, Janet Spriggs. So we're here to answer any questions about the county budget that we've asked for, and also to give you sort of an overview and a thank you for the support that we've had from the past. You have a gift. This is our third in of our annual reports. This one is for 2013, and you can look back at the accomplishments of the college, the budget, and that kind of thing. For people who are maybe watching this and not understanding how community colleges are funded and why we're here today, the college operations are funded out of the state budget, and the county supports our building. So that's true for both counties. Rowan County supports the North Campus, and Cabarrus County supports several areas, including the South Campus, but the North Carolina Research Campus building is supported by the state, and there are no county funds for that building from either county. So that gives you sort of an overview of how we're funded. Every year we come to you and ask for the money to support our facilities. And this year we came earlier, or have been talking to you for over 3 years, for support to move our our excellent program in cosmetology and aesthetics and other programs, and we are very pleased that that's been able to be worked out after 3 years. And we're excited about that. This is our normal ask, if you will, and I'll have Janet Spriggs walk us through that in just a minute. I would like to just mention a highlight for us. It's always graduation, and on May the 16th, we had our graduation, and we appreciate Mike Downs joining us. We had the governor as our speaker, and he had a marvelous time, and we had a marvelous time with him. He stayed on the stage with me and shook every graduate's hands. And in some cases, when the names are called out, if you're sharp, you can remember their name by the time they get to you, and he did. He was calling them by their first names. He knew what they graduated from. He got the most excited about the cosmetology students and the air conditioning students. He said, I want you air conditioning students to come and work for us now in the Capitol. We really need people like you. Then he'd say stuff to me like, these are real people with real jobs that are going to be able to be employed. And I said, yes, that's very true. And so we are thrilled that he caught the spirit of the community college, and everybody else, I think, in that group did. But we graduated about 940 students with 1,700 certificates, degrees, and diplomas. So it's not just they get the degree, they also have other certificates that are great for the marketplace. So that they really did a great job, I think, of using their college time. We also had the distinction of having our first Morehouse Kane Scholar out of our early college, and this is a 4-year full ride to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. The college has never had anybody transfer into the University of North Carolina with a Morehead scholarship, and Trey did. He was also our student speaker and did a marvelous job. The governor does not want to ever follow him again in a speech, as you can imagine. But he will be able to get his master's degree with a full ride there. So, you know about the early college program. You know that that is working very well, but it's great to see a real triumph like that. So our two highlights, I think, were the governor and his he just got energy from that group and really did a marvelous job with it. So that's our big celebration, and we're happy to tell you that the people that are in those buildings that you support are doing very well. So thank you for that, and thank you for your support over the time. And I'll turn it over to Janet Spriggs, our CFO, to give you this overview.
Thank you. very much. You have on the screen the expansion budget request that we presented to county staff in March. And I believe in the manager's recommended budget, you see very close on the current operating to what we're requesting for. The top half of the spreadsheet shows our current operating request. We are asking for $75,000 in addition to our regular current operating allocation for basically to cover the increase that we will experience in our cosmetology lease. The lease goes from $8 per square foot to $9 per square foot starting starting August 1 of 2014 for 11 months. So we need an increase to be able to cover that. We also ran short this year in our ability to perform all of the maintenance and repairs to facilities out of current operating that we needed to be able to do. We were able to cover that this year using basically we did some shell games and moved some expenses out of county into state with some state funds that we had for this year that we don't anticipate being able to do that again for the coming year. So we were able to make it through this year, but we were short. That $75,000 helps us to be able to meet that gap and also to cover the increase in the lease. We also, at the time, salaries is always a hot topic when we get to the budget deliberations with the state. As the state is working through their budget process. In March, our best information was that the General Assembly was looking at a 2% salary increase. Since that time, the governor's budget did not have 2%, and the Senate budget, which just was released today, did not have 2%. We're still hopeful that the House is going to go with that 2%. So I believe that we will know by probably mid to late June where we're going to be with salary increases, and I think the manager's budget basically puts money aside to be able to cover for the county funded employees whatever the state ends up with as far as salary increases for state funded employees. So we were asking for a total of $85,800 in addition to our current operating budget. We do, and I do want to make you all aware, you may have heard that in the governor's budget there was a little bit of a surprise as far as workers' compensation goes. We did not know about this until the governor's budget was released on May 14th, so we did not have that information to share with you in March. But the governor's budget and the Senate's budget that was just released today basically puts the burden for paying for workers' compensation insurance for all of our employees on the local government's backs. So essentially, the state has always covered that for the state-funded employees. If this passes, then we will not be allowed to use state money to cover the workers' compensation insurance for all of our employees. And that, so far, our estimates are about $120,000 increase for the college. All of that would not be Cabarrus County. We do have the two counties, but it would be a $120,000 increase approximately to our budget. So just to make you aware of that. And we are hoping that we are able to change minds on that point. And then below that we have our capital expansion request. We had a total of $388,000 in items that we believe are our top priorities for the coming year. I believe the manager's recommended budget is $100,000, but you see here the items that we believe to be imperative and important for us to begin to work on in the coming year. And we would be happy to answer questions about those. We also, on the second page here, wanted to show you some additional capital items. The first two items that we are using RCCC funds to cover, and those are safety and security items, the video surveillance for South Campus, and the mass notification upgrade for South Campus as well. And we have fee money that we have collected to be able to pay for those important security and safety upgrades. We also wanted to go ahead and put a replacement for a 150-ton chiller on the future needs list, just to make you aware that we do have a chiller in Building 1000 that is already at the end of its useful life. It has not failed. It's continuing to chug along, but we do anticipate any day that it might and wanted you to be aware of that. And that's estimated to be a $105,000 replacement cost. That is our budget request for this year. We are happy to answer any questions that you have.
Can you tell me how many county-funded positions you have and what kind of positions those are? Not like a person's name, but just kind of what they do.
Yes, I believe I brought that list with me. I want to say that there are 9 total, and a couple of those are split funded. So the Cabarrus County does not fund the entire cost. Let's see, let me do a quick count. 9. And then we have 2 positions that are split funded between the 2 counties.
And are those professors, or are they?
No, they're all
Maintenance
facilities
people?
and maintenance. Yes, all
Maintenance
facilities.
techs and custodians.
Okay. I thought that was the case, but I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure what
Yes.
those were. That's,
Yeah. All of our faculty are supported out of state money. All of our administration is funded out of state money.
Commissioners, I'll open it up for anyone that would like to jump in, please.
I'm just curious about when you think the new Cloverleaf, I'm sorry, the new cosmetology facility will be ready for move-in. Have you picked a spot for it yet?
We have picked a spot. It's a building in the village area of Kannapolis. We have a lot of detail now in terms of what that upfit will look like, what the rent will be approximately, and as soon as we know that we have the 1.5 million, the city of Kannapolis has given us $150,000. I have a heart attack. They say a million. $150,000, and that money's available now, so we could start. The architect. We also Castle and Cook is going to build this and lease this to us. They have an architect and they have a bid. And so if we can make the July 2nd deadline, that bid will still be good. It's a very reasonable bid. So we're hoping to make that deadline. If we do, we expect to move in before July 1 of 2015. In fact, we're hoping for that time right after the term ends, that special time between May and June, to move in during that period so we can stop classes at one point and start them at the other location. So if everything works out the way we've got it planned, it will work, and we will be ready for business, July 1st or thereabouts. Thank you for asking.
We do, on your June agenda, there will be an agenda item to address that need so that the money would be in place, so for you guys to consider.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Okay.
Thank you.
very much.
Appreciate your time.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to pick on the 3 of you. This is a work session, so, we don't have to be quite as formal. If you have something to say, just key up, okay? I don't mind asking you 3 or 4 times, but, it's a work session for you to get any of your questions answered, so. Okay, next we have the EDC. If you guys want to come on up.
Is that all right if I stand, or would you prefer I sit down? You can't, hold a microphone. Okay, can I just stand up, the stand?
That's your microphone.
Okay, all right, I'll try to, I'll do my best to do it from the seat.
Sure.
You all right? Sure. Get this green in.
Yeah, and what I would ask, Patrick, if you will do us a favor of introducing yourself and who you have with you, so that people that will watch this later will know exactly who's doing the presentation. We appreciate it, and whenever you're ready, turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I appreciate that, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and share a little bit about what's happening at the EDC and what our plans are. We are a small and mighty team of right now 2.5. Is this not on? Okay. Okay. The little green light wasn't on there. Okay. Is that better now? Okay.
Just go ahead and talk.
Okay. We are a small but mighty team of 2.5. Hopefully we will be 3.5 very soon. We are interviewing for an open position right now. But most of you know my team with me. Our Executive Vice President of Economic Development is Margie Bukowski, and our Project Manager is Samantha Grass. And we are looking for a third person, actually it'd be a fourth person, to join the team to do some existing business and industry, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We do have a couple of board members that are going to try and pop their heads in since we're starting a little bit early. I excuse them in advance if they're a little bit distracting for you, but some of our board members did want to be here to be a part of it and hear any questions that you might have for us. We'd like to do a couple of things this afternoon. We want to present to you, first of all, what it is that the EDC does. We want to talk second about how we do what we do. Share with you a little bit about how much time it actually takes to bring a project from inquiry to completion. We want to tell you a little bit about who we partner with. I mentioned our small but mighty team, but we actually work with a number of partners in the region and across the state, so we'd like to share with you a little bit about that. And then I want to talk a little bit about what we've accomplished, not only in the past year, but in the past couple of years, just to give you a little bit of perspective before we get to the final part about what our request is going to be. So there are two main functions of the Economic Development Corporation. One is retention and expansion of existing business, and the other is recruiting new industry. I'm sure you see the monthly reports that we send to you that tell us what our activity has been and things of that nature. What I'd like to do first is talk a little bit about our recruitment efforts. So the requests for information, the RFIs, in the past year we've received 71 requests for information. Those have translated into 16 site visits. So actual clients that are interested in this area eventually setting their boots in Cabarrus County to look at property and to look at buildings. The average number of jobs in those RFIs has been 106, and the average investment has been $27 million. Now, that's a little, I don't want to say it's misleading, but keep in mind that is an average. We've had projects that have come to us that are $120 million worth of investment and others that are 10, and that doesn't always equate to how many jobs, but on average, it's 106 jobs and $27 million in average investment. So I think that's a pretty good sign there. So what are these projects? A lot of them are manufacturing. The lion's share are manufacturing. A good number of them we don't know. They may say it's an industrial client, but because of confidentiality, we don't know if it's manufacturing, we don't know if it's headquarters, we just don't know where they're coming from. Quite a bit of distribution. We've seen an increase recently in inquiries around distribution because of the completion of 85. We've seen some increase in headquarters locations as our largest suburb, Charlotte, begins getting built out. Companies are starting to look at the surrounding areas for headquarter locations. So we're seeing more and more of those as well. Where are they coming from? Well, we're seeing them coming from real estate brokers. Some folks are calling us directly, but we see a lot of them coming from our partnership with the Charlotte Regional Partnership, as well as the North Carolina Department of Commerce. So, as you know, the Charlotte Regional Partnership is the regional economic development marketing entity. So most of our, or a good number of our inquiries are coming from them, and a good number are coming from the Department of Commerce as well. And these companies aren't just coming from the region or coming from the United States. We have a number, I'm sorry, we'll go ahead, we'll go ahead to this slide here. We have a number of projects that are coming internationally, and the frequency of those inquiries is starting to climb. So we're seeing Asia, we're seeing Canada, but Europe in the past year or so, we've seen a significant increase as well. And I think just as the world economy is starting to gain a little bit of traction, I think that's why we're seeing that natural trade between the United States and Europe.
So what's happening right now in terms of active recruitment projects? Right now, we are currently working 48 potential recruitment projects. That translates, if all of those 48 were to come, that would be over 5,000 jobs. If all of them were to come, that'd be over $700 million worth of investment. Now, I will tell you right now, I don't know which of those companies will come, but with certainty I will tell you that not all of them will come. Unfortunately, not all of them will come, but certainly some of them will. But right now, that's a pretty significant number. So we have this opportunity because we're actively engaged with the Department of Commerce and our contacts there. We're actively engaged in the Charlotte region, especially with the Charlotte Regional Partnership with several brokers. We would not have these opportunities if the EDC didn't exist. We're the conduit for that, and we're the network for that. So I wanted to point out that the county would not have this opportunity. So when we talk about an RFI in recruiting a company, what goes into that? How do we do that? What's the time frame? So I'd like to share with you two examples, and it's interesting because both of these have come to completion this year. Very, very different projects, very, very different timelines. We got a call on January 28th about Project Ventus, which was an industrial project. We didn't know what they did. We didn't know if they made something. Out of the gate, as time went on and we started answering their questions, we were able to figure out that it was indeed a manufacturing facility. So we were notified on January 28th. And they gave us a 20-page document that asked for an enormous amount of detail and needed it back by February 4th. Now, if you think about, I don't know if you remember those dates, but there was a weekend thrown in between. So there was plenty of time, but there wasn't plenty of working time. So the team did what they had to do, came in on the weekend. We actually came back early from a conference as well to make sure that we put our best foot forward, okay? Over the course of working Project Ventus, they came to visit the county 3 times. Anywhere from 10 to 25 people were here on site. While we managed this project, we generated over 190 emails, almost 100 phone calls. We can't even count the number of meetings, both internal and external, with our partners. So we put our best foot forward and we really hit the ground running. If you look at your appendix, and you probably don't want to switch to that right now. Yeah, if you could stay on this for just 1 second, Parth. In Section 2 of your appendix, we've shared with you some of the documentation and some of the information that we had to provide to this client. So there's a copy in there of the blank RFI. There are maps in there. There are schedules and agendas in there. And the reason why we wanted to share the agendas with you when they visited is because we wanted you to understand that the time frame that we had with them was very, very short. They would come in for a couple of hours, and we had to communicate clearly, effectively, put our best foot forward, make sure everything was spit-shined and ready to go, because they were leaving Cabarrus County and going on to their next potential stop. So we had to cram a whole lot of information and a whole lot of marketing into a very, very short period of time. So managing the logistics of all of those meetings was very, very important. Unfortunately, on March 25th, we were notified that we were no longer a contender for this project. So we put in 9 weeks, 200 emails, 100 phone calls, countless meetings, several visits to manage this project that we didn't get. Okay, we don't know where it's landed yet. They have not made that announcement. We do know that they have not chosen any of the sites in North Carolina, so we did not lose to any one of our neighbors or to another site in North Carolina. But I wanted to share that level of detail with you because right now, we are managing over 50 recruitment and expansion projects at some stage of what we just shared here. So just do the math and think about the number of meetings and emails and correspondence and phone calls, all of those things that go into managing each one of these projects. Multiply that by 50, what we just shared with you. That's what we're doing on a day-to-day basis to manage some of these projects, okay? Just to put it in perspective for you, okay? So here was a project that came to us, very short time frame, very intense amount of work, and we lost the project. Let me give you one more example here. And this is the other end of the spectrum. We all heard about the site, the Philip Morris sale just last month. It was purchased in April. Victory Industrial Park did not come here in March, see that property and say, hey, that looks like a nice place, I think we'll buy it. Our first contact with this client was 4 years ago. So it took 4 years from our initial contact to actually get the project moving, to know for sure that it was going to happen. Now, there's still a lot that needs to happen, don't get me wrong. We're expecting, relatively soon to hear how they're going to use it and what industry or industries will be located there. But those are the two spectrums that we're working. Economic development is not linear, unfortunately. You don't put in these three components in a measured amount of time, you get out the finished product. Economic development, unfortunately, is you just never know. You put in all the ingredients. Sometimes you know in 9 weeks, sometimes you know in 4 years. The reality is I gave you the two polar extremes. It typically happens in a relatively short period of time. 18 to 24 months is typically what we see. But still, that's a fairly long time frame from a project starting. So that's a couple of the examples of what we do in terms of recruiting new businesses. What else are we doing? Well, I talked a little bit about the importance of our networks and the importance of our partners. As you can see, we do a tremendous amount with the Charlotte Regional Partnership. I serve on the board of directors. Margie serves on the Economic Development Advisory Council. Sam serves on the Existing Industry Committee. So all three of us are serving in different capacities with different audiences within that partnership. That's very important. You can see several of the other entities, both local and regional, that we serve on as well. We are out there as well, marketing the community, educating our team so that they're more effective at what they do. Going to trade shows, conventions, missions. Here's some that we've not only participated in, some of these we have also exhibited at as well. And as you look at this list, you can probably pick out several of them that are related to our core industries, food and nutrition, biotech, motorsports, automotive, etc. So we're being very selective about where we go and when we go, and just because there's a convention for economic development doesn't mean that we're going. If we don't have a pretty good reason to be there, we don't bother going. The other point is, we don't typically go by ourselves. We will go with one of our partners, whether it be a broker, North Carolina Department of Commerce. We'll team up with them and go to a booth with them. Charlotte Regional Partnership. Again, there's strength in numbers. And if Margie goes to a conference by herself, she's one person in a sea of people. But if Margie's at a conference with Secretary Decker, that gives a much different face to Cabarrus County and what we can present, I think. So talking a little bit about some of our other partners, we mentioned partners here and there. These are some of the site selectors that we work with. And I'm not going to read them all to you, but you can see where they're headquartered: Chicago, New York, Atlanta, Dallas. All the ones that have a little asterisk next to them, they all have offices in Charlotte. So that's a good thing because they're close by. We can actively manage that relationship and work along with them. And just to put this in perspective for you, you hear the term site selector. What is a site selector? A site selector is a consultant, and their job is to develop projects, help companies develop projects, and then determine what are all the criteria that they need to manage to bring that project to fruition. So it would be what geographic region of the country do they want to be in, specific land, infrastructure, utilities. They'll enumerate all these different things before that request for information goes out. They're the hired gun by the company, okay? On the other side, they have offices close by, so it's very easy for us to reach out to them, to make sure we maintain that relationship, tell them about the new products that we have, the expanded infrastructure, whatever happens to be going on here in Cabarrus County, we have to maintain that relationship on a personal level. So that's very important. Now, in addition to the site selectors, we also have a number of brokers that we work with. A number of these names, you know that you see their signs around here. You know that some of them are actively engaged in this community right now in developments and speculative buildings. But brokers are the folks that help market a piece of property, a site, a building. They help the owner maximize the sale price. They help the owner get the most favorable deal. So these are the people out there that are marketing our buildings and our land, okay? Again, most of them are located very close to us. If they're not here in Cabarrus County, they at least have an office in the Charlotte area. So working with them, again, and keeping them informed about new opportunities and new product that's coming to market here in Cabarrus County is very, very important.
Patrick, can I ask you a question about that?
Yes.
And this is really just for information. So the the company looking to move has a site selector that it has hired, and the people that have property available for companies like that have a broker that they pay to go out and market that property to those site selectors.
Yes.
So where does the EDC come in and provide value when you've got both of those entities already having representation?
Well, that's an excellent question, and actually Project Ventus is an excellent example of that, because there was a site selector that was steering it from the company standpoint, and the property that they were looking at was being marketed by a broker. So think about the purpose of those two entities. The site selector wants to get the most for their client for the least amount of money. The broker wants to get the most for their client, the most amount of money. Where does the EDC come in? Right in the middle. And that's where we were. As the facilitator, as the one that was kind of steering that conversation, brokers are very careful about the information they're going to share, as are site selectors. Oftentimes, we have to work one-on-one to explain why a broker's position is a certain way, or to explain to a broker, the site selector isn't quite ready to reveal these details, but if you trust us, we know a little bit more about what's going on. Just hang in there for a little bit longer. So it is a very important role that we play, because we're neutral. We don't care how much the property sells for, ultimately, and we don't care how much they buy it for. What we want to happen is for that project to come to fruition.
Jason, if I can add just a little to that, is that the Department of Commerce, this Ventus was a Department of Commerce project. So they come to us. We're the first person
I'm sorry,
that
is your
contact.
mic on?
I'm sorry.
Sometimes we
Yeah,
can hear.
it
Is
is,
it,
yeah.
is the light, is it lit up?
It's on.
Okay,
yeah.
I just want to make sure. I'm sorry.
We're the first people that the Department of Commerce calls, and they leave it up to us to get in touch once we see the parameters of the project. So we contact the broker and start talking about the properties that are available. So we are their first point that they come to in order to get all these things. We are in the middle, but we are their contact for our area, because they don't know our area that well.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I think
Sure.
that EDC is one of the least understood public-private partnerships that we have here as a county, and so that was a question that I wanted to know, but I also think it's helpful for the people at home to realize, you know, where you are providing the county value and things like that. So I wanted to make sure I gave you opportunity to tell them.
I appreciate that, and we're probably giving you more information and more detail than you need about our organization. But the reason that we're doing it is to that very point. since I've been here, started in February, I've heard that often. What exactly does the EDC do? What exactly are you out there doing? And, to us that have been doing it for years and years, it's second nature, but we forget sometimes that we're not always good at communicating. And we're so busy running the project that we don't stop to communicate what it is that we're doing. So I appreciate the opportunity to really clarify that. So we talked about site selectors, we talked about brokers, we can't leave out the infrastructure and utility partners. I would guess that we have daily contact with somebody on this list, whether it's Wasac or Duke Energy or one of the municipalities. I think there's something we're contacting one of these folks about each and every day. So working with our utility partners and infrastructure partners is very, very important because, again, those brokers and those site selectors want to know that if they need a road built, if they need a sewer extension, if they need water line extended, that there's a relationship there that can make it happen as quickly as possible. So these are very important. Speaking of our utility partners, here's our friends from Duke Energy coming in right now. So we talked a little bit about what we do. We've talked a little bit about how we do it. We talked about the time frame some of these projects take. We've talked about our partners. What I want to talk about next before we get to the bottom line is our accomplishments over the past couple of years. So if you look at the total investment of, if you can go back 2, please. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah, thank you. If you look at the total expansion and new project investment from fiscal 2012 to the present, these are projects, by the way, that the EDC has been intimately involved in, very instrumental in bringing to fruition. It has totaled almost $296 million. Most of that has happened in the past 12 months, but not all of it. This number, too, is a little bit low. It's a conservative number because we don't have yet from Stuart Haas what the Formula One investment is going to be and how many jobs that is going to create. But we know for a fact that since 2012 to today, the projects that we have managed have created $296 million worth of investment. Okay. Now add to this, there are 4 new expansion projects. So existing businesses here in Cabarrus County that are going to expand, 4 brand new ones that have happened within the past month. We don't have up here because they're not quite ready to make it public, and we don't have their investment dollars in the number of jobs yet, but we have $296 million plus 4 new ones that have just popped up within the past month. So we're very excited about being able to talk about those very, very soon. So these, again, are projects that the EDC has been very instrumental in making happen. In addition to that, over the same period of time, 2012 and 2013, there have been a number of other projects that we have not been the main driver of. You can see there are a number of projects here that CMC Northeast has expanded and put an emergency clinic and their health alliance and all of these different things, as well as a couple of other projects here. However, if you think about that previous slide and all of those projects and all those new jobs that have come here, and you look at this, you can kind of draw a conclusion that some of these projects were at least induced by this growth and expansion. Would these have happened without those previous projects? Maybe some of them, but I doubt very much that they would have expanded to this level. They would have happened to this level. So if you look at the total number of, the total amount of investment in direct EDC projects and those that we have induced, it's over $400 million in the past 2 years and 602 jobs. So let me share with you just a couple of things related to these. From these past 2 slides, there are 21 total projects. Of those 21 projects, 12 of them were expansions. Not new projects, expansions of existing companies. That's important information for us to know. And in fact, the expansions accounted for almost 70% of that new revenue, of that new investment. So over 50% of the projects are expansions, and over 70% of the new investment in terms of dollars is coming from expansions. That's very important for us to know as we start planning in the coming years, putting our strategic plan together, really think about where we're spending our resources, and I'll come back to that in just a couple of minutes. So how do we stack up compared to some of our neighboring counties here? Well, okay. If you look at what's happening in Cleveland County has the largest dollar amount invested over that same time period. The folks over in the Statesville area have the most projects, and the folks in Rowan County have created the most jobs in that same period. The caveat to that is those jobs in Rowan County are a lower wage job and not as skilled of a workforce skilled of a job that we would be looking to attract here. So there is a little bit of a caveat. But that just gives you an idea of where we are compared to some of our surrounding competitors in the region. So what does the future hold for the EDC? I spoke just a minute ago about understanding where the dollars were coming from, where the projects were coming from. The third tab of your appendix is a draft of our strategic plan. If you had taken a look at this document about 3 weeks ago, it would have looked much different and much shorter. It is a work in progress, but it's coming together very, very quickly. What we've realized is that our existing business and industry can provide many more jobs and much more investment than we maybe realized before. So our goals in our strategic plan are to create jobs and to expand the tax base and to attract new businesses. So two of those things, creating jobs and expanding the tax base, that can be done by working with our existing businesses. So when we started looking at some of these numbers, we realized that we need to shift some of our resources from recruitment and spend a little bit more time on retention and expansion of existing businesses. So even if we spent 10%, 15%, move 15% of our resources to retention, the return on that, I think, would be exponential. So we're going to start doing that in the coming year, in the coming years. So as you look at our budget, our request from the county remains constant at $332,000. That's what the county provided last year. We're not asking you to go up. But if you look at this chart, you can see that we are expecting more revenue this year. Our budget this year is $556,000. We're going up to $603,000 next year. Well, where's that money coming from? It's coming from additional private sources and additional municipal sources as well. Our private funding, we are budgeting to increase by 40% next year. You may think that's an extremely aggressive goal. It is, but I will tell you we already have a commitment for half of that increase. We have commitments for half of that increase. So I believe it's doable. We've also talked to some of our other government funders about increasing next year, in the coming year. They are very amenable to that. They're very excited about the strategic plan and some of the things that we're doing to execute around keeping existing businesses here. So our municipal funding is going to increase about 8%. Our private funding will increase about 40%. So that accounts for the major change in our revenue. As you look at the expense side, we're reducing our operating expenditures by 1.5% and moving some of those resources to where we're going to get the bang for the buck. Marketing, retention, and recruitment. Marketing, retention, and recruitment. That's our new mantra, okay? So when we talk about focusing on retention, and I'm not going to go through the budget line by line, but we are increasing from $33,000 to $50,000. And right now, that is a draft number. If we get some more commitments that I'm hoping that we might get, we might actually increase our retention activities more than that. But right now, that represents a 17% increase in retention activities, and I know that we will definitely do that. We're going to increase our marketing by about 39%. Because we've already begun reworking our website. We need to work on a rebranding effort. We need to work on our social media initiatives. And if we're going to be spending more time with existing businesses that are here that we're trying to encourage to expand, we need to understand what's our message when we sit down and talk with them. It's not just a matter of walking in and saying, hey, Mr. Owner of the business, do you want to add 5 new jobs or 50 new jobs or whatever? We have to have a comprehensive message and marketing platform that we just don't have right now at this point in time. So with that, we come to the bottom line. We would love for the county to maintain their investment in the EDC of $332,000 in the coming year, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I open it up for any questions that anyone has at this time.
What is the funding that Concord and Kannapolis adds to that amount?
Combined, Commissioner Burge, I want to say combined they're in the neighborhood of about 120,000. Is that correct? 120, 130,000. That was last year's levels.
They're going to be the same this year?
I don't believe so. I believe they will be increased. That's our hope.
You said Concord, Kannapolis. All the municipality, excuse me, can't talk, do all the municipalities participate?
Yes, ma'am.
Harrisburg, Mount Pleasant?
Mm-hmm.
What is their
Midland.
total?
Mm-hmm.
What's their total? Mount Pleasant, Midland, Harrisburg?
They pay a much lower rate based on their per capita. They pay a per capita rate based on their population right now. I can get you the exact figures for that if that would be helpful. But Midland has about 1,600 people. Mount Pleasant has about 1,600 people. That's correct, 3,000 people. So they're much smaller. Their tax revenues are much lower, and honestly, their opportunity for these types of projects is much different than what would be in the county and the two cities.
But the cities, their funding is about half of what the county's funding is.
In the past year, they were, yes, sir.
And you have some private investors?
We do. As I mentioned, we have about $89,000 in private investment. Our plan is to increase that to somewhere between 120 and 130 in the coming year. And we do, as I mentioned, we do have commitments for about 50% of that increase already.
Patrick, of course, all that you do is not, you do a tremendous amount, and incentives is a small piece of that. But one thing I have noticed is, I suppose before my arrival, my understanding is that an incentive had not been turned down in Cabarrus County. We voted down one incentive for Windshear that's on your list on page 21 as continuing its project. But I know that there was at least one and maybe more spec buildings that received an incentive prior to my arrival. And there's, I believe, 4 or 5 spec buildings on this list that did not receive a county incentive, and they're building anyway. And so I think that what I see in that is that this causal link between they had to get the incentive or they wouldn't build here has been really destroyed, to be honest with you. They were going to build here otherwise. At least these 5 were, because they in fact did build here without receiving an incentive from us. So Cabarrus County right now, we had talked about this on Tuesday, is spending $2.77 million on incentive grants, which is paying back people's taxes. But if they were going to build those projects anyway, that means we're potentially throwing away $2.77 million, because we are giving them back tax revenue for a project that they potentially could have built here anyway. And so my question to you is, we've seen that causal connection break, and how do we, in your professional experience, how do we evaluate projects to see whether an incentive is actually necessary for somebody to come here, or whether they are just trying to get an incentive because incentives are offered? I think the only evidence we've required of them previously is a signature on a piece of paper, and I think one or more of these companies have signed that piece of paper and not received the incentives and still going to build. So that may not always be the truth with businesses, and I don't hold that against them. I mean, that's one of the things that they try to do, is maximize the amount of money that they get. But to go back to my question, how, as a professional in this field, how do you advise that we evaluate the need for incentives in the future for particular projects?
I wish there were some economic development crucible that we could create to actually test the theory of incentives, and create 2 parallel universes and have, you know, one with no incentives and one with incentives, and look what happens, and see what happens. I don't think a pro-incentive standpoint could actually be verified. I don't think an anti-incentive standpoint could actually be verified. But I do, you know, incentives come in a lot of different versions. Okay, so what you're talking about specifically is tax incentives. But there are other incentives, for instance, infrastructure. So extending a sewer line, building a new road, putting in water. You know, all of those things are actually money out of pocket, which governments understand is their role in their responsibility. If you talk about incentives from a tax standpoint, you know, the typical line is, it's a necessary evil, everybody hates them, but we got to do them. I think the reality is, if we want to be innovative and we want to be competitive, but we also want to be responsible to our community, there's probably a way we can figure this out. Okay? The human race is smart enough to figure out how to put a man on the moon and bring him back safely. I think we could probably figure out a way to develop an incentive policy for the county that might have several different little buckets within it. I think there might be a way to build into the EDC's budget money available to companies if they're looking to do an environmental study on a piece of property or get core samples or something like that. Those are all little things that mean a lot. They add up in a project, and they mean a lot. And I don't think what we've really done is sat down and really take a look at, here's what companies are asking for, but here's what companies need, and here's what we can do. We've never just put that matrix together and sat down and talked about that. And I think that if we go through that process, we can come up with solutions that everybody is happy with. I really do. And I think we'll also come up with some solutions that just aren't right for this county, and we might need to look elsewhere. So the other thing is, too, we need to consider why we're incenting. Are we incenting development, or are we incenting job creation? Now, the state of North Carolina will not give an incentive unless you're creating jobs. I like that. I mean, if we're one of our core functions at the EDC is to create jobs, more jobs and diversified jobs, then that's what we should be incenting. If the municipalities, if some of our other partners want to create incentives that just incentivize capital investment, well, that may not necessarily be a bad thing because that's on them. You know what I mean? If that's their decision, that just sweetens the pot and adds to the attractiveness of Cabarrus County. But from a county standpoint, from the county's policy, I think we really need to consider what are the jobs that we're creating. And it's very easy to say we're aligning this with what the state of North Carolina's Department of Commerce is putting forth for their incentive package. And we're just being in alignment with them. I think that's a very valid discussion.
I think on your list, do you have the development that's going on Copperfield also? That's going to be a big development, isn't it? I think that's a...
It's just it's a market.
It's a
an
market,
open-air market.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
It's
compared
a
to.
market in a restaurant, market
Yeah.
and restaurant.
Because, I mean, of your list, only 3 of the 13 projects got an incentive, and there's, I think, about $125 million in projects that receive no incentive from the county. And so I think we really do, as a county, have to think about, you know, are we just giving back taxpayer money that is rightfully paid to the county when you build something here, really for no reason, for no causal reason. And so I appreciate your response on that.
It's a conversation worth having. I will say the development on Copperfield is, and we are helping them, we're working with them, but we're not, they aren't our core industry. We focus on industry, manufacturing, distribution, their retail, restaurant. We don't have, and honestly, we would rather spend more time creating a higher paying job. They are a great quality of life business. We need them. And certainly I think the Chamber will be able to help them even more so than the EDC will be once they move along a little bit further. And that will allow the EDC to focus on some of these other projects that we have in the pipeline that are going to create those higher paying jobs.
That's great. And I really did not mean to imply that all of this was all about incentives, but I don't
Not
get
at
a chance to ask experts questions like that very often. I wanted to take advantage of it while you were here.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
A couple things I wanted to ask you about, and I appreciate you taking us through that process to better understand the amount of calls and hours and how those projects worked. I recently attended an economic development symposium that the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners made available to us, and I wanted to get your opinion on some of the things that I heard there. And one of the things that they talked about was, and you've talked about the number of requests for information that you receive. They talked to us about the number of companies that seek their own information and research us that we never know about. Sometimes for whatever, I mean, they start out the process with a list of criteria and they check us to see if we meet those basic criteria. If we don't, then we never hear from them or never know that they've looked at us. And so would that be a statement you would agree with?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, there was a brewery that made an announcement that they were going to expand, and they made the mistake of making that announcement, not hiring a site selector, so everybody and their brother wanted to help them, and it became overwhelming. But to your point, Commissioner Morris, that is the reason why we are going through this rebranding, website redevelopment, to make sure that all the information that we have out there is as robust as possible. If you go to our website right now and you did a search for properties and buildings availability, you can find all of that information. But can we make it much more robust? Can we figure out a way to show where the utilities are, how close utilities are to an undeveloped site? So some of those key items that a business might be looking for, a site selector might be looking for, How do we build that into kind of an interactive part of our website? That's exactly what we're talking about doing right now, so that as they do their research, we're more likely to get that phone call. Or on the other side, if they don't call us, great, then we don't have to spend 9 weeks and 200 emails and all those meetings to find out down the road that we're not a fit for them.
Right.
So there's a positive and a negative there. It saves us time, lets us focus on things that we know will have a higher rate of return, and then it also brings us a more qualified candidate that might call.
Right, and I think you've mentioned some points that I really hadn't considered that just emphasizes the importance of the information we do make available. That does make a lot of sense. One of the other things that they emphasized was that increasingly projects that come to the state of North Carolina they want to move right now. and so improved certified sites,
yes,
ready to move in buildings, zoning in place, and the whole list that you're much more familiar with than I am. They said that it was critical that that you had these things in place so that when these companies do check you out, that you have those things available. And
right.
One of the statements that they made was your economic development efforts, and you've demonstrated that through some of your comments. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. So you have to get all these things in place. So you're shaking your head yes, so I'm assuming that those facts you agree with.
Without a doubt, and I know you've read our strategic plan extensively, and so that's why you asked this question. But one of the key result areas, we have 3 key result areas of our strategic plan. One of them is product development, meaning, do we have sites available? Do we have buildings available? Do we have developable sites? Do we have shovel-ready sites? Understanding what our inventory looks like right now, trying to determine what those gaps are, and then going after some developers to say, hey, guess what? That spec building that was just built, we've got a tenant coming in now, and we need another spec building because of all the inquiries that we're getting. Or we need, instead of an industrial spec building, we need an office speculative building now. So one of the key result areas is to focus on that product development piece. Understand what we have, what we need, and where that gap is, and then work with local and regional developers to fill that gap. Critical. And over the next 12 to 24 months, that's going to be a very important piece. We hope that after that we kind of get caught up a little bit and get the infrastructure in place and maybe don't have to spend as much time and attention on that. But over the next year or two, we're going to have to do a lot of work in really understanding our product development and site identification.
Would you say that what we're experiencing as far as the economy improving over what we've seen for the past 5 years, can you see a marked increase in the amount of activity and inquiries? People that have been sitting tight for a while are now ready to expand or relocate?
I don't mean to be glib, but I can see a marked increase since I arrived in February. From what was going on in the office in February of this year to what happened in the past 4 weeks, it's markedly different.
And that's good news.
Excellent
if we're
news.
ready, if we're prepared.
Yeah, excellent news. Mm-hmm.
Another thing that that they talked about that I don't think just consciously considered was in times past, and one of the examples that they used, if you had a $150 million investment from an industry, that may have meant thousands of jobs. They said today it's not unusual that a $150 million investment might mean 150 jobs,
right,
or less. And is that something that, I mean, because you talked about the jobs, and I agree with you, I think that's a very important part of what we want in Cabarrus County are employment opportunities for folks. But you've got to get a lot more companies to get the same number of jobs today than you might have in the past.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
I would, and we've seen that with some of our existing businesses that have expanded. They've bought more equipment and built a new building, but what they're investing in, the number of jobs that they create, you know, it's kind of surprising. Manufacturing is a technology business. Distribution is a technology business. I mean, that's a good thing because we're more efficient, we're more effective, our tolerances can be much more specific now. On the downside, with more computers doing the work and more automated equipment, you don't need as many people. But what you need is a higher skill of person. So that is our challenge, is to help train and retrain some of the people that are out of work right now to understand that, you know, the job that they had 5 or 10 years ago, it's probably not going to come back. It's not going to exist anymore. And we have to figure out ways to retrain them either for a different career or to get back into that same business with a higher skill level. So you're absolutely right. That investment is there, but there's a corollary to your point that I don't want to let go. It's much easier to keep a current customer happy than it is to gain a new customer. Whether you're Walmart, whether you're a Ford dealership, or whether you're in the economic development business. Where I'm going with this, is it hard to attract a new company to come here, invest $50 million, and create 200 new jobs? Yeah, it's hard work, but it's what we do each and every day. But what if we took some of those resources and we spent more time with our existing businesses, and all of a sudden Company A says, well, yeah, we are getting ready. You know, we're seeing it with the economy coming back. We do need to increase our production line. We could add 25 more jobs if you could help us. And Company B says, well, we might be interested in adding 50 new jobs because our customers are. My point is, we might be able, by reallocating resources, we might be able to add those 200 jobs for less cost because we're working with existing companies and businesses than trying to attract a new company to come here. At the same time, by working with our local companies and making them raving fans, not only of the EDC, but out of Cabarrus County, anytime we want to grow or expand or we've got a problem, the county's right there for us, the EDC's right there for us, we could not ask for better marketing when we're trying to recruit than to make our existing businesses happy. Think about all their competitors that they talk to, their suppliers, their vendors, their customers. If all of their customers and their vendors know how happy they are to be in Cabarrus County, well then, that's a warm call to call on them to locate here in the future. You see what I mean? So one of the best investments we can make in recruitment is to retain the companies that we have, keep them happy, and keep them growing.
That makes a great deal of sense, and I appreciate those comments. One, and I could ask a whole long list of questions, but one final comment on the list of projects that we have here, which we're very fortunate to have several spec buildings going up, but that's just step one from your standpoint, I would think. Getting that building up and ready is the important first step, but getting investment, jobs, tenants in those buildings requires a lot of effort as well, I would think.
Well, and that's where Margie has been doing a tremendous amount of work. There's quite a bit of activity.
There's a lot of activity, chasing those people down, finding the right people, and getting those companies that we really want to have here be in those buildings.
Well,
jobs.
Thank you for what you do, and when I listen to people from other parts of the state talking about what what you need to be doing, and they say having that product available and being able to react rapidly and then I see the things that are happening here, they match up very well, and so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? You good? Thank you very much.
Well,
Appreciate
thank you very
coming.
much. I know you have a lot to consider over the next coming weeks. I hope that we've made a very clear case that for what the county is investing in the EDC, the return has been tremendous over the past 12 to 24 months. And so I hope we can count on your continued funding in 14-15. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioners, we have on our agenda to take a short break. So we'll take about a 10-minute break. Next up is the Cabarrus Health Alliance. So if you guys want to kind of get settled and in seats up here, so you can go ahead and do that prior to, while we're taking our break.
Where did it go?
Thanks.
You've got it.